Hey, so let's talk about something that I think is super important. We're going to dive into a method, a way of thinking that helps you truly get your head around any big idea, whether it's from some ancient philosopher or a breakthrough in modern science. You've seen this quote everywhere, right? It's on posters, coffee mugs. It feels so familiar, almost like a lyric from a pop song. And we hear it, we nod along, and we kind of move on, feeling like, yep, got it, some ancient wisdom. But hold on. What if knowing that quote is like knowing the title of a book, but never actually reading the story inside? You see, Socrates wasn't just dropping a nice one-liner for a t-shirt. He was making a really radical argument against a whole way of life, and that's where the real genius is hiding. And this gets us to a huge problem with how we consume information today. We've all become experts in the bumper sticker versions of big ideas. We know the famous catchphrases, but we totally miss the intricate and, honestly, way more fascinating arguments that give them all their power. Here's the bottom line. We mistake the summary for the substance. To really understand the power of a work, we have to get past that oversimplified takeaway. We need to dig into the author's actual reasoning and see the architecture of the argument itself. So how do we actually do that? Well, what we need is a blueprint, a kind of structured framework that you can apply to any complex text or big idea to break it down, understand its core, and see why it still matters today. Let's give it a whirl. Our blueprint has three main stages. First, we lay the foundation by getting the context. Then we build the framework by mapping out the core logic. And finally, we look at the facade to see the idea's lasting impact. See how that works? Each step builds on the last, giving us a really complete picture. Okay, let's break down these three parts of our blueprint. This is how we go from just being a passive audience to being an active analyst. And for our case study, we're going to use a real giant of 20th century thought, John Rawls's book, A Theory of Justice. First up, the foundation. We have to understand the context, because no idea is born in a vacuum. Before Rawls published his work back in 1971, the big idea in political philosophy was something called utilitarianism, which is basically the greatest good for the greatest number. Now that sounds pretty good, right? But it could justify sacrificing the rights of a few people for the benefit of the many. That was the conversation Rawls was stepping into. Next, we build the framework by mapping out the core logic. The key here is to find the author's premises, their starting assumptions. To push back against utilitarianism, Rawls came up with this brilliant new idea, a thought experiment he called the original position. He said, imagine you're behind a veil of ignorance. You have to design the rules for society, but you have no idea if you'll be rich or poor, healthy or sick. What's the fairest system you could possibly build from there? That one idea is the premise his entire argument rests on. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the difference. On the left, you've got this simple summary for Rawls, which is basically fairness is equality. But on the right, that's the complex and nuanced argument he actually made, his difference principle. He argued that inequalities are okay, but, and this is a huge but, only if they work to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged people in society. It's not just simple equality, it's a way more radical and specific idea. And finally, we check out the facade, the idea's lasting impact. A work's true importance is really measured by its ripple effect. In Rawls's theory, it totally reshaped the entire landscape. Thinkers like Robert Nozick immediately criticized it from a libertarian point of view. For the next 50 years, almost all political philosophy became a reaction to Rawls, defending him, attacking him, or trying to modify his framework. Now that's impact. Okay, so now we have a framework to understand an idea. But to truly engage with it, you gotta test it. You have to put it under some real pressure and see if it holds up. A really crucial step is to go find the strongest possible critique of the work. For Rawls, a powerful objection came from Nozick, who said that the difference principle violates individual liberty by treating people's natural talents like they're some common asset for society to hand out. So what's the best defense? Rawls might fire back that our talents are morally arbitrary. I mean, we didn't earn them. So it's totally fair to arrange society so that they benefit everyone. This kind of intellectual sparring match is what reveals an argument's true strengths and weaknesses. But there's an even more powerful way to test a theory. The ultimate stress test for any idea is to push it to its absolute logical extreme. And you do that through a thought experiment. And this AI scenario, it's basically a high-tech version of Rawls's veil of ignorance.
Since you have no idea what your place in this new world will be, you'd probably choose rules that protect the person who's worst off, just in case that person turns out to be you. Pushing a theory with a modern scenario like this is how you find out if it really holds up under extreme pressure.
So when you put all these pieces together, the context of utilitarianism, the core logic of the veil of ignorance, the impact it had on later thinkers, and then a stress test, you stop seeing Rawls's idea as just a flat statement about fairness. You really start thinking in 3D.
This is the real power of having this blueprint. It transforms you. You go from being a passive consumer of information to being an active analyst, someone who is equipped to deconstruct, to question, and to truly understand the ideas that shape our world. And ultimately, this isn't just about analyzing old books. It's about developing one incredibly powerful skill, the ability to think critically and deeply. In a world that is just saturated with hot takes and headlines, this is what lets you see beyond all that noise and grasp the real substance. So, I'll leave you with this. Now that you have this blueprint, what complex idea, something you thought you knew, are you going to go back and see with fresh eyes? What will you understand differently now? This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.